Let's continue with our discussion on describing data visually. And I'd like to begin now by talking a bit about the generation of histograms. And the video that we've watched showed a bit about the generation of a histogram, and we're going to pick up from there and talk about frequency tables and histograms. The idea here is that we'd like to display how many observations fall within a category or a range of values within those values of our variable. And these can be used for both qualitative and quantitative values. In qualitative or categorical variables, typically we call this type of chart a bar chart or column chart. The video you saw referred to it as a bar chart. In Excel, the vertical chart actually is referred to as a column chart. And Excel also has a horizontal version of that is referred to in Excel as a bar chart. But the general idea remains exactly the same. The extent of the bar or column defines some measure of the count of elements within that bin or observations within that bin. So for qualitative variables, we use the column chart or bar chart for vertical or horizontal display. But for quantitative variables, we typically call that chart a histogram, and it has just some special features, some of which are very important, some of which the video pointed out. And we'll take a look at some of these. The tricky part, especially for quantitative values, is choosing the categories or classes or bins. It's fairly straightforward for categorical variables. We simply use the name of the categories. But in dealing with quantitative values, we need to choose a size for our bin or our interval. And as the video implied, if we have too many bins or too few bins, we lose a lot of meaningful data. So there's some guidelines that are used. Again, these bins or classes, whether it's categorical or numerical variables, they should be mutually exclusive and they should be collectively exhaustive. For quantitative categories, 8 to 15 bins works best. I think the video said 5 to 15, but somewhere in that range works well. That's a good amount of visual information that the brain can take in and interpret in a meaningful way. I tend to like round numbers. I think the bins should have starting and end points or a range or width of the interval that is some kind of round number. So as you look at the starting point and ending point of each bin, they're multiples of some round number. So I think of a width of 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 or something like that that makes some sense. Again, these are just guidelines. If you're dealing with some kind of variable that makes sense for you to have some non-round number for the interval width, like 17 or something, by all means do that. Of course, these are just guidelines. But one of the things I like to think about graphing, as well as many other things in Excel, they're part of telling a story. So if it tells your story best to use some strange interval width like 17, do that if that's what tells a story best. Most stories, though, will be told best with round numbers. So bin sizes or interval sizes of, again, round numbers often are most helpful. Okay, well, for now we'll take a pause. That kind of wraps up our discussion on histograms, and we'll pick up with some discussions of some other types of charts.